All right, so now let's turn to come back to our good friend Maximo Castagno, Chief Product Officer of Beezy. And Max, you're going to tell us about Beezy's evolution to an intelligent workplace. But why don't you set the context for us briefly at first in explaining what Beezy does, give us an overview of the solution.
Yeah, sure. Let me quickly share my screen. Let me know when you see it. I think you need to make me a presenter. Or, no, now it works. All right. Okay. Can you see my screen?
That's looking good.
All right. So I was presented already yesterday. Basically, the highlight here is that I'm not a technical guy by definition. I'm a sociologist. That's a little bit what makes some of the things that I will explain a bit different than the typical technical vendor perspective. Beezy, when we talk about Beezy, we created a product because we are on a mission to change how people work. We have been very, very early working on the very first SharePoint versions, and we witnessed a lot of frustration, right? And it's not just SharePoint, it's not just Microsoft, it's not just one platform. There is a lot of frustration. So we really want to make organizations more productive, more social. I will explain why social has been important for us since the beginning. And at the end, we just want to make employees happier at work. The way that we work is exactly what we are kind of envisioning during this session. In almost all the presentations, there was this idea that we need a layer, right? We need a user experience layer that simplifies things, that stitches the different pieces of the puzzle together, that brings some cohesive user experience, that can be also tailored to any company's branding and culture. So we are that layer. In many aspects, I'm happy to be sharing this session with WorkGrid because I think we share the same vision of the pain points and what we're trying to solve. So we are this user experience layer, but this user experience layer is not just a pretty face. It's not just a template. There are many products out there in the market that work a bit too lightly on this user experience layer. It's more a design layer, and Beezy is really something much more complex than that because it's built on an engine, and our engine and our API will be very relevant to the things that I will explain later, but we have many components that allow us to connect the different pieces that live underneath these two layers. And basically what we are doing is that we are a product that started in the Microsoft ecosystem, and we are completely focused on that ecosystem. We need the Microsoft piece of the puzzle to be there, but more and more we are extending as well beyond the Microsoft ecosystem and connecting with tools like Salesforce and Workday and Facebook Workplace and Fuse for e-learning, Concur, etc., etc. So that's the big picture of what Beezy does. Of course, it looks great because we want this user experience to be very, very, very similar to the consumer user experience, but it's also a product that it can be installed in a matter of hours and it will look exactly like this. These are real examples. I will be jumping into the demo environment if needed later on. So it's not a product that you buy and then you have to configure and that you have to come up with everything. It's not a product that sits on top of your existing intranet. It's a product that really replaces and becomes your full digital workplace. I will go into the details of some of these screens and explain how we work a lot on the concept of newsfeed and activity streams. This is the iPad experience for reading internal comms, stories. That's how we call our news article system. This is a screenshot that shows how much we also take care into the the content creation and content management side of things. So this is a kind of a Kanban mode that we have for content creators and article writers to organize their own editorial pipeline. So we not only offer a good experience on top of SharePoint and Office 365 to the end user, to the employee, but also to all these community managers, content creators, and high-level admins of the platform. The mobile app, I will also be covering this in a minute. But all this intro was to really jump into what I want to share with you. I hope, Ted, that this was a good intro of the product, but the main idea for this session is that I will share how our product evolution, how we see the market, and it doesn't matter if you will buy or not buy Beezy at the end of the session. I think the takeaways are interesting for you because we are in the same boat, right? We are just trying to face the same challenges and the same frustrations in our employees together.
Yeah, Max, I think this is, as you and I had talked before we, before the event, it's really interesting to hear how the Beezy story is parallel to what a lot of organizations are going through. So take us through that. And I think it's interesting to see what people can learn from what you learned and apply on their own.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, this is a little bit our story condensed in a few steps in this slide. And basically, we started our product in a very specific moment in time that was around some 8-9 years ago, when we've seen that intranets were started as a source of providing information to employees, right? The first intranets that we were doing in the late 90s were basically about digitizing all this content and procedures and manuals and product information that were paper-based, right? And this was kind of the beginning of the digital transformation. Then they become a tool of communication quite quickly, I would say. And again, they were just replacing the old company magazine in many organizations. But then we started incorporating in all these intranet, because at that time, these two levels, they were just called intranets, right? There was no other term. And then suddenly collaboration kicked in. This idea that intranets were not only about one-way communication, but people were doing things and starting to work together. And at that very same time, there was one big wave of innovation that we took advantage of, which was social, right? Social came from the consumer world. Social was something that made everyone very excited about this idea that suddenly intranets, as they were trying to address this collaboration challenge and how to support this collaboration, they needed to mimic what was going on in the consumer world, and they needed to have the same kind of activity stream and the same kind of follow logic and tagging logic and hashtaggings and all these things. And that was very exciting for us, exciting enough to start creating our product. But of course, this is kind of the past. This is kind of where we started bringing all the components of the product that we have today. But a few years ago, we started seeing a new trend here, and we started seeing a new kind of phase that we are calling here transaction. You can find many different names for that. I don't think there is a common name so far for this. But what really changed in this new phase is that suddenly it's not anymore about people to people. It's not anymore about only humans interacting in these digital workplaces. It's systems and people together. And this is why I was using a slide that I already used with you in an event. And I think it was picked up by Paul Miller in one of the keynotes of your event, because I found that Chaplin was a very Of course, Modern Times is a movie that was explaining a lot of things that were happening in the workspace, in the labor market at that time. But I think he was really, really visionary for what we're living today. This kind of scene where this person is really part of the machine, of the machinery at work, is something that I think is happening in this phase, where we have big data that is coming from different systems. We have alerts, we have triggers, we have automation, we have things that are alerting us, and we need to give feedback back to the system. So we feel that we are already going into this kind of new phase in the digital workplace. And we feel like there is a very important wave that will again push the envelope and take the digital employee experience to a next level. And that is around intelligence. Intelligence is a very broad term, but I think the combination of tools connecting to each other that is nowadays possible with APIs and connectors, together with what is available in terms of understanding and technology power, it's going to deliver on this idea that we don't need new tools, we don't need the new fancy feature, we just need better tools.
So Max, I think we can all relate to that picture you had up there of Charlie Chaplin in modern times, and sometimes feeling like we're just stuck into the machine and being turned by it. What kind of hope do you think there is for intelligence to give us maybe a little more empowerment and not feel like we're just being spun by the gears?
Yeah, I think I have a few examples to show you what I'm referring to as intelligence. And I think it's also somehow connected to what was discussed yesterday around this idea of the book by Steve Kruger, Don't Make Me Think. Basically, how can we make technology help employees not have to think about some things that they don't need to spend time on? I have a couple of examples here. I will start with some very, very basic examples, and then we'll get a bit more complex, and then I will get more futuristic as well, and then I will get back to reality. Let me explain this concept of zero queries. This is a concept that is very important today in software development, and how we try to design software. When we start having a lot of data about who this user is, what patterns or who he works with, where is he located, for example, something that is very easy to do with a mobile app, etc., etc. We start to think about, hey, before a user types anything, before a user searches for anything, before a user shows some kind of intent for anything, well, if we really work and think about it, chances are that we can already predict, or we have at least an educated guess about what he would like to do. And this is something that we have been, this example is something that we have been thinking a long time ago in our product. We have a component that is called the share box, who allows every user to create different types of content within SharePoint, within Office 365 and beyond, ideas, tasks, calendar events, etc. And of course, we have the mention capabilities in this tool. Well, at some point we said, okay, why don't we just try to guess who this person is going to mention? And then more or less a couple of years ago, there was something new in the Microsoft platform called the Office Graph, that now is called the Microsoft Graph, that is really doing that. It's helping us with one API call, because Beezy is a product that is natively integrated into Office 365. We know exactly who this user is in Office 365, and we can very quickly, with just one quick call to the API, understand who this person's work with. So who are his closest colleagues? And by just surfacing the names of their colleagues here with a zero query, without the user having to type anything, we are betting on something that is very likely to be what the user is needing at that point, because you are very likely to be mentioning the people that are more close to you in your work. And this is very accurate nowadays, because Microsoft is very well positioned to create this graph, because they know who opened your emails, who read your attachments. Many of these things are registered in this very intelligent graph. The API method is not sophisticated. It's something quite simple here. Who do I work with? But the power of this is, if you multiply these seconds that you win with the amount of times that you are mentioning people throughout the day, it accounts for a lot of your time. So this is what I'm talking about when I say intelligence. Another example, I was reacting to a comment yesterday by someone saying, like, I have the feeling that in this conference, we keep talking about the same topics, knowledge management and this and that and email and etc., and we never move forward. And it's kind of true, but I'm quite excited about this new wave, in the sense that, for example, something like auto-tagging content, we know that users will not tag content consistently. We know that we need to help them. We know that it's very human to think about the gratification in the next minutes and not think about the knowledge management gratifications in the next 6 months or 2 years. So we need to help them. So what can we do today? Again, in this ShareBox component that we have in Beezy, what is the user writing about? There is an API call in Azure Cognitive Services. If you are running Office 365, of course, you need some cloud technology by Microsoft here. We can very quickly understand, send a piece of text and extract some keywords from that piece of text. And if then now we compare these keywords that come from the Microsoft Intelligence with the Beezy API, and we say, hey, Beezy, is this topic, is this keyword a tag that people and humans have really used in Beezy before? If yes, if there is a match, hey, why don't we suggest this tagging? Or even better, why don't we just tag this in the background as a secondary tagging system, knowing that this is kind of a mix between intelligence and folksonomy. So again, we have today, this is not super futuristic, this is something that we are trying out right now in our product, that we are refining, that we are studying. Microsoft is also working on something very related to this called Microsoft Cortex project, the Cortex project by Microsoft. I encourage all of you to understand, because these are good examples of this wave of intelligence that we are going to be seeing. I have a few more examples, but I will run out of time.
Max, now let me just jump in here real quick and comment on the tagging, because it fits in with some of the responses we got from people yesterday talking about, hey, as you're, to technology providers in particular, like, don't forget about us, the people who are running your systems and administrating them. Make it easier for us. And, as somebody who spent 10 years, as a system administrator, one of these systems, and trying and begging people to tag things and then going in and tagging after them. Auto tagging, it's a nice little, it sounds like a nice little feature, but it really can make a significant difference in the quality of the content and the findability of the content in the in a system in terms of knowledge management. So I think you'll get lots of fans when you can deliver this successfully. It's a popular, useful value add.
Yeah, and there are lots of subtleties. For example, here to complete the picture here in this mockup, because this was one of the first mockups that we did. There is the machine understanding what this text is about. There is Beezy trying to understand if humans manage or were talking about these topics, and there is a final point, which is this question mark here, which is, hey, you human that just created this content, you are the best positioned person to say, is this a good tag or not? So there are many components here, and it's quite sophisticated. Let's be honest. I mean, the promise of auto tagging is really a challenge, and it will only come from humans cooperating with systems, which was a little bit this the slide before about the humans and cogs and machines, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen some awful auto tagging, and that just makes things worse if you're stuck with it. You've got to have a way for the human being to intervene and say, no, I don't know why you put that tag there. You've got to get rid of that one or add this one instead.
Yeah. This one very quickly is just an experiment that is really based on behavioral science. There are more chances that you will update your profile if you know that some of your closest colleagues have updated the profile. Let's imagine that you and I, Ted, work on, I don't know, SharePoint 2025, which is a new technology. If I see that you update your profile and I'm lagging behind and I haven't done that, and I know that you should be on my profile, there are much more chances that I will update it. So it's also, again, here, it's a mix of intelligence, but also a lot of humanity. It's not, it's intelligence, but not only artificial intelligence.
So this is a lot of really cool looking stuff. Can you tell us, back sort of a little more back to reality maybe, or the present day, what's the status today, and where do you see yourself going in the near future with Beezy?
Yeah,
the product.
Yeah. I really wanted to show also what we're doing today, because I know that many of you will find this kind of futuristic. It's good to know where the future is taking us, but it's also good to understand, hey, okay, now what can I do? And I know also that there were many questions about, hey, this employee experience layer is interesting, but how do you really integrate all these tools, etc.? So again, if I go back to the evolution, an intranet in the 2000s, I would say, was mostly a mix of communication and information. 10 years later, it was already a mix of communication, information, and some collaboration and some social form of collaboration. But then what we really try to do today is more than an intranet, is this notion of digital workplace and digital employee experience. And the way that we see from a user experience perspective, how you build this layer is by really mixing these four components. And the transactions have to make part of this. Collaboration have to be quite important in this mix. There is a good balance between push and pull, which you have to find. And we work a lot on this concept of personalized feeds or activity streams. You will be seeing in some of the examples in our product that for us, this notion of activity stream is extremely important. So the way we tackle integrations and intelligence, it's very open, because we really think that one size doesn't fit all when it comes to integrations and intelligence. So what we created, instead of creating just one box that integrates or shows content coming from Salesforce, which is kind of the old school, you create a little widget or you create a little box for that. We created a workflow, framework where our customers will be able to really enable some of these user journeys and integrate the flow and the workflow and the automation that they need in the user newsfeed. This is an example of the mobile app. It has a newsfeed that is kind of the primary feature of the mobile app. And this is an example of what we call the action cards. And the action cards are cards that are presented to the user, not always, not all the time, but based on intelligent triggers. And in this example, there is a discount that has been requested in Salesforce. Salesforce is a tool for sales people. And this notion of asking for a discount in an opportunity is something that triggered this action card. And it triggered this action card only in the newsfeed of a few people that are enabled in Salesforce. We are not trying to replace Salesforce at all here, but what we are trying to do is to bring this quick action to the interface of this employee experience feed. And together with the information and together with the actions, we also bring the social components of this. So if we take a look at the anatomy of what we implemented as an action card, it's intelligent. It can be based on specific triggers. Sometimes it can be powered by the bot. Sometimes it can be a real user posting this information. It comes from an automated system. It's contextual because it's really showing real-time information coming from these third-party tools like Salesforce here. It's actionable. It has buttons, or it can have buttons that are presented to the user for the user to take action. And when they take action, they are really taking action in Salesforce. So that action is immediately sent to the third-party tool. And finally, which is very important for us as well, is social. It's connected to our social engine. It's connected to our notifications engine. It's connected to our mention notifications. And that is a good combination, because maybe in 3 or 4 weeks, you ask yourself, why did we approve this discount for this person that day? I don't remember the context. And then you find the conversation right next to the card where you took the decision. And that is a very important part of the solution. This is based on automation platforms like Power Automate, Nintex, K2. All this is orchestrated by these automation platforms. I'm a bit conscious of time, Ted.
You're doing fine. We've got I've only got like really one question that has come in, and I'll share it with you. But if there's anything else you want to get to, I think you can probably get there. The question was one that didn't, I think, get answered fully, or that may be interesting sort of broadly, was, how does the API code actually suggest people if the person works with a lot of people across the organization? And I think the gist of it is, how well does this really work, Max?
Okay, so we are going back to one of these ideas about these features that will tell me who this person work with, right?
Right.
So that's actually a question for Microsoft. What we are just using is an API that comes from Microsoft, and Microsoft has their own ways to understand this based on the usage of course, Office plus Windows plus everything. Is actually the same method that Microsoft themselves will use when you are sometimes, when you are in Outlook and you want to attach a file. There is another API method that says, that is called trending around me, documents trending around me. And it looks at the latest documents that you opened, that you received, etc., etc. This is kind of the black magic in the intelligence of Microsoft. I will probably send you guys to some of these websites. For example, the Azure Cognitive Service, where they really explain the different services, how they can do image recognition, how they can do language understanding. For the graph, there are many examples and resources to understand how Microsoft understand who I work with. What I can just tell you is that if there is one product or platform well positioned to understand this kind of graph connection between people and workers and employees and colleagues, it's Microsoft. So in that sense, Beezy is not doing anything here, but we are tapping into the power of the Microsoft Graph.
So sounds like if I kind of bring it back to that diagram we looked at yesterday from Dion Hinchcliffe as sort of the experience layer. You're taking, Beezy is providing that experience layer and drawing upon the power of Microsoft Graph and other capabilities. Are there other parts of sort of the Microsoft, I don't know what you call it, universe that you're pulling in and helping to make it be a positive, simple experience for the user?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a couple of examples here also to showcase this. So there is something called cognitive services, and again, it's not about one capability in the platform. It's about how you mix and match these capabilities. So let me take this example. We have a very important part of the product to create news and articles. We call them stories. It's very fresh. It's very modern in the way that you create content, and it's very visual. So we rely on images a lot for the news and the articles to be appealing to the end user and to be and to offer this kind of consumer-like user experience. But again, here, it's not always easy to find the right image to illustrate your article, right? So this example is trying to look at this problem. And again, it's combining two things. As we control the authoring experience, we can see when a content creator is typing a new article, and this new article will have a title, will have a body, and he will keep writing. At some point, we will call the API of this natural language understanding component of Azure, and we will say, can you look at this text and tell me and extract the keywords? Sure. In 10 milliseconds, you have it. You send a bunch of text, a piece of text, and you get the keywords extracted. Okay, now can I run a SharePoint search for all the images, the typical corporate media library, the officially supported images that are corporate images? Can I run an image search based on those keywords? Let's imagine that I extract the word roots and nature from this article. Can I look for roots and nature pictures? Yes, that's a SharePoint search query, which is also available today. This is not futuristic at all. Now, if I mix and match these two intelligence, that's something very handy for the user. He will find authorized imagery that is immediately suggested based on the text that the content author is typing. That really removes a lot of friction of my day-to-day. And as a result, my images and my articles should be more visually appealing, and kind of it's helping the system to work again.
I really like this, Maximo, from the perspective. I can't help but just be, speaking selfishly as somebody who's run these kinds of systems inside companies, and usually with a small team, not a team of developers. And I could look at, all that stuff that Microsoft publishes about their APIs and their graph and their whatever, and their, and Azure's coming out of, your ears. And I wouldn't be able to do anything with it. I don't have those skills. And I think a lot of the people who are running these kinds of intranets or social intranets or any kind of site internally often are more focused on the communications, the HR angle, the culture. And so what you're doing is basically taking that capability and bringing it into the product so that I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to have my own developers building it. So I like that angle of just making it really easy, sort of going back to the digital employee experience theme.
Yeah, absolutely. I was quickly pulling up my demo environment here so you can see all the ideas that I mentioned before. This idea that there is a combination of push content and then the very personalized newsfeed. This idea that this content might be coming from SuccessFactors, from Workday, from different things. And this idea that this is at the end machines like the Beezy bot or the API of SuccessFactors working with humans that are sometimes just praising their colleagues, et cetera, et cetera.
All right. This has been great, Maximo, and you'll be around if people do have additional questions and want to dig into things later. We do have an optional overtime period at the end, so if you want to ask Maximo anything further or see anything else, you can stay on for that. The WorkGrid folks will be available as well.